So do you have a sort of a book of notes that explains exactly what you know, all the information that's in the first book, say? And I say, yes, it's called The Air Effect. Because if I had to write a book of notes, it would probably be actually as longer than the book itself. So what I do is I have this paperback which is full of little post-its, and every single little post-it has written on it some little plot point that either I haven't used in the past or may need to use in the future, or just something that I have to reference to later. So it was quite fun to actually go back through the series and actually see what plot points I left myself, so I could actually carry on with the fifth in the series. And that's, I suppose, one of the points about the books, is that I often leave little sort of dangling plot points for myself to pick up at a later date, because when I'm running from book to book, I don't really know what I'm doing. I kind of make it up as I go along. But I also know that I don't know anything, which is kind of, I'm a sort of speechwriter. What's his name? Won't use that joke. So I have a very good idea of what I can't do, and I can't really plan long term for my book. So I tend to make each one as I go along. But because of that, I leave these little sort of dangling plot points to pick up at a later date. And again, that's what I've done with First Among Sequels. It's actually carried on a few little ideas. I like the idea of the cheese duty, which has been running throughout the series, about this how really expensive cheese is in Thursday's world. So I thought there should be a cheese enforcement agency, CEA, which is one of the only spec ops departments actually still running, along with the Chronogard, who are still there as well. So we have a bit of fun with cheese as well. So that particular gag is not completely dead yet. So I sort of thought I'd do that. I suppose I should read. Maybe I'll read a little bit. Actually, that might be quite fun. Let's read a little bit, and then I'll sort of talk a little bit about that. Now, the point about reading from books, of course, is that if you read from anywhere other than right from the very beginning, you sort of start giving things away. So what I thought I'd do is I'll read right from the very beginning to give you an idea of what you're actually going to be in store for. This was a nice satirical idea, which I kind of enjoy, and I'll see if you enjoy it as well. But let's just start at the right at the very beginning and see where we get to. Okay, here we are. So this is in chapter 1, it's only a couple of pages, shouldn't take me too long. By the way, sorry, that wasn't it. I'll do cheating a little bit. And in fact, it's actually cheating, really. That in fact, you know, it is 100,000 words, and you know, you pay a reasonable amount of money for 100,000 words, when in fact, actually, 3,000 of them are the same ones. You know? Really. I mean, to get your money's worth, I should really do one of each word, shouldn't I? Just get the dictionary and sort of zuzz it up there. But anyway, here we go. The dangerously high level of the stupidity surplus was once again the lead story in the Owl that morning. The reason for the crisis was clear. Prime Minister Redmond van der Post and his ruling Common Sense Party had been discharging their duties with a reckless degree of responsibility that bordered on inspired sagacity. Instead of drifting from one crisis to the next and appeasing the nation with a steady stream of knee-jerk legislation and headline-grabbing but arguably pointless initiatives, they had been resolutely building a raft of considered long-term plans that concentrated on unity, fairness and tolerance. It was a state of affairs deplored by Mr. Alfredo Traficone, leader of the opposition Prevailing Wind Party, who wanted to lead the nation back onto the safer grounds of uninformed stupidity. How could they let it get this bad? Asked Landon as he walked into the kitchen, having just dispatched our daughters off to school. They walked themselves, naturally. Tuesday was 13 and took great pride in looking after Jenny, who was now 10. Sorry, I said, my mind full of other matters, foremost amongst them the worrying possibility that Pickwick's plumage might never grow back, and that she would have to spend the rest of her life looking like a Tesco's oven-ready chicken. The stupidity surplus, repeated Landon as he sat down at the kitchen table. I'm all for responsible government, but storing it up like this is bound to cause problems sooner or later. Even by acting sensibly, the government has shown itself to be a bunch of idiots. There are a lot of idiots in the country, I replied absently, and they deserve representation as much as the next man. But he was right. Unlike previous governments, which had skillfully managed to eke out our collective stupidity all year round, the current administration had decided to store it all up and then blow it on something unbelievably dopey. arguing that one major bullseye per every 10 years or so was less damaging than a weekly helping of mild political asininity. The problem was, the surplus had reached absurdly high levels, where it had even surpassed the monumentally dumb mark. Only a blunder of staggering proportions would remove the surplus, and the nature of this mind-numbing act of idiocy was a matter of considerable media speculation. It says here, he said, getting into full rant mode by adjusting his spectacles and tapping at the newspaper with his index finger, that even the government is having to admit that the stupidity surplus is a far, far bigger problem than they had first imagined. I held the striped dodo cozy I was knitting for Pickwick against her pink and blotchy body to check the size, and she puffed herself up to look more alluring, but to no avail. She then made an indignant clocking noise, which was the only sound she ever uttered. Do you think I should knit her a party one as well? You know, black, off the shoulder with sparkly bits. But, Landon went on in a lather of outrage, the Prime Minister has poured scorn on Trafficone's suggestion to offload our unwanted stupidity on third world nations, who would be only too happy to have it in exchange for several sacks of cash and a Mercedes or two. He's right, I replied with a sigh. Idiocy offsets are bullshit. Stupidity is our own problem. It has to be dealt with on an individual stupidity footprint basis. So the interesting thing is that you start off writing, or I started off writing, and I didn't realise what I was doing. Right, I just wrote because I thought it was fun, and I put this character here because I thought it was fun and amusing, and I had no idea why. There was no actual sort of rhyme or reason to it. But as you start writing books and you start talking to readers and everything like that, and they start explaining why they like things, then you suddenly realise that actually there is a sort of reason why you're doing things. And I think you start realising that the whole reading and writing thing is of, you know, vast complexity, and it's probably the closest thing to telepathy that we possess. And certainly, you know, when I read a book, for instance, I read every now and again, I reread Three Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome. Hysterically funny book, right? Really funny book. Yet Jerome K. Jerome, who is still talking to us down the years, is long dead. You know, he is mouldy bones right now, dust. And yet, it's still there. You have a link with an author who is now dead. Now, if that's not sort of bizarre sort of spiritual experience, I don't know what is, to be honest. But like many things, they seem so natural that everyone takes it for granted. But if you really start thinking about that whole reading and writing, it's a shared human experience thing. And that's why I think when I write about Pickwick, for instance, people really are interested in it. I think this is what actually sort of got me onto this whole idea, is that for some reason many people find Pickwick one of their favourite characters, right? And I think that's odd, and I'm always questioning things. I think that's a bit strange. Why Pickwick? You know, and I thought, well, Pickwick to me, what I put into Pickwick is every pet I ever had when I was a kid, right? And the stupid things you do, and the affection that I held for these rather dopey pets, you know, pet dogs, you know, cats, whatever. And what's happening is people are reading that into Pickwick, and it is firing off the same emotions they had for their pet when they were kids. So there's a kind of very strong sort of shared sort of emotion thing that works here, which is bizarre, really, bizarre and fantastic. And I think that's why that fantasy authors can write in this bizarre way, with worlds within worlds within worlds, and people kind of pick it up, because it's all stuff that we know together. Very strange, very strange. What should we, let's, oh no, we're doing all right. Let's have some questions. Reality book shows, death of time travel. No, we won't do that. That joke's definitely not funny. I might tell the balloon joke, because that will get me a laugh. Early bird gets the worm. Why did I write that? Oh yeah, that was an interesting thing. Again, you asked questions. Early bird gets the worm. It's a really good saying, okay, but not if you're the worm. Have you ever thought of that? If you're a worm and you get up early, you're going to be eaten. So it really doesn't work if you're the worm.